Hey, Danny.
Hey, Alicia. How are you today?
I am feeling really, really good.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I was a little tired, but now I'm feeling a lot better. I'm so excited for this conversation. I have been trying to have this conversation all season long, but we have been blessed to have so many wonderful guests,
Yeah.
that we needed to kind of fit in and get on for the season. So today's just you and I, like old times, girl.
Sometimes.
And I know our listeners love, love, love when it's just, and they love our guests, but they definitely love when it's just the two of us. So I thought the perfect conversation to have was Villainous Victims is the name of this episode. And it sounds like, like what? How are you a villainous victim? And pretty much a lot of us like to point the finger and say that everybody else is the problem, everyone is toxic, but we very rarely talk about when we're toxic and when we're the villain in someone else's story.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was a great conversation to have, especially in this age of social media and highlight reels and where everyone just seems like they are perfect and minding their business and drinking their water. Like I'm like, it just seems like everyone else is the hater. So I'm like, but who are the haters? Who is the hater that's hating on everybody? Like, where are they at? What is there a community of them? Do they have a Facebook page where they gather and hate? You know what I'm saying? And knowingly do it? Because I'm like, there has to be some reason why everyone feels they have all these haters and toxic people, but for some reason nobody is willing to admit that's them. So
everybody's vibing hard.
So a lot of us are villainous victims at one point or another. Maybe not all the time, but at some point you've been the villain in someone's story.
Absolutely. And two, I feel as though being willing to honor that and tell yourself the truth, because too many people lie to themselves. Like I literally just had a conversation with someone where I was just like, I really do hope you heal. And I'm now grateful that I recognize that you really are a wolf in sheep's clothing who believes that they are a sheep. You really do believe that you are.
Them be the ones, boy. Them be the ones.
Those are the ones who break you sometimes or try to break you the worst because they do their best to convince you that I am safe. I am a safe person. It's okay. And then it's like, well, what happens if we start to tell ourselves the truth? Like, hey, these are my toxic traits. Like even now when I go on first dates, I ask them, one of my first questions is, what's the worst thing about you? And I make them comfortable by telling many of my worst things about me. I got ADD. I got ADD. I'm gonna forget about you if you don't make it memorable. No disrespect, I promise. With the way my ADD is set up. Like, what does it look like for us to go into a situation where we are highlighting the things that are bad about us? Because I want to know, do our demons play well together?
That's a good one.
Listen.
I think it is a way to go about it without being too self-deprecating. Like you don't want to be like just like, oh, I'm just the worst, I'm this, I'm that, and you're like self-loathing. As opposed to just being honest about who you really are, good, bad, and ugly. So yeah, I love that question, but I don't want anyone to think like, oh, you just need to constantly talk about how bad you are. No, you should always talk about your great personality traits and the things that make you different and things that make you valuable. But I think a lot of times people aren't painting the whole picture. So I love that you asked that on first dates. I don't think I've ever asked anyone that on a first date. That's a good question.
Well, I date much more intentionally now because, we all know my story. I used to choose abusive men. Then I started choosing emotionally unavailable men and men who weren't healed, men who were like traumatized. So they had no choice but to also traumatize my ass. So now I date much more intentionally. And I've been really getting to know, how do I show up in a way that hurts those who I love? What does that look like? Because again, we named our lower selves. I'm Lola. Like, I know when she is about to rear her ugly head, I mean, she's still cute, but when the other side of her is about to come out. So, what does it look like for us to say, hey, this is where I have intentionally hurt someone because either I didn't have the confidence or the conviction, word to Mita from Carta, but I didn't have the confidence and the conviction to say, hey, this is where I'm at, or this is how I feel.
Yeah. Or how about when you unintentionally hurt someone and then realize later that you hurt them, but still don't take responsibility because you now feel like shit for hurting them. So it ends up kind of this in this vicious cycle, which I think that's where many people end up, where
Yeah.
they're so unaware, and most of us are walking around unaware. So you're so unaware of how your behavior affects other people. And then when you get called out or when you realize it, as opposed to facing it, a lot of times people will ghost you or they just fade to black, fade in the bushes like Homer. You know what I'm saying? And then you're like, wait, what happened? What was the reason for this disconnect or this ghosting? And then it's because a lot of times they feel bad about what they've done, but they don't want to face themselves or face you, because then that means facing themselves and what's wrong with them. And nobody wants to be the villain.
Nobody wants to be the villain. It's like, tell yourself the truth. Hey, in this situation, this is where I did you hella dirty. Like, I fucked this one over. My bad. I was wrong. That's the one thing I will say that I have been doing my best to pride myself on. And honestly, I started it with my daughter. That's how I got really good at it, because I was a young mother. I was straight out of college. I had no clue what I was doing. Love my mother to pieces. And she also had a number of challenges that she worked through in my childhood while growing up. She did not know how to handle me, although she loved me. She couldn't figure it out. And so, because of that, I said I wanted to do better when I had my daughter. But the reality of the situation is I had no clue what I was doing.
No example.
I had no example,
Yeah.
no blueprint. I was super lost. My daughter, too, came out like me, a rebel, not wanting to, rules. What are they? What are those? Like,
Yeah.
I had told myself that I am going to get into the habit of honoring and owning when I make a mistake. And if I can do it with someone who I don't owe her an explanation, I just don't. If I can do it to someone who I don't owe an explanation to, then I become better at when it's something that, or someone that's close to me, or someone that I love, or someone who I not only admire, but I also want to honor. I can also do it then because I've exercised the muscle. So I'm
Yeah.
really good at having really tough conversations. So I would tell my daughter when I would make a mistake, like, hey, my bad. I messed that one up. I didn't mean to make you feel like this. I know my actions hurt you, so I apologize. Mommy is still trying to figure it out. And some days are really, really hard for me because this isn't how I expected to have to experience motherhood.
Wow. That's awesome.
But it's hard to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And your
Yeah.
ego, listen, and your ego, especially if it's someone who you owe no explanation to, because I take care of your life. You only eat because I decide to feed you.
Yeah.
Because I don't owe you an explanation. I don't have to do anything except for, legally feed you just a little bit and put some clothes on you, make sure you go to school. When you exercise it there, it makes it so much easier to have conversations later. And two, it helps you self-identify. Yo, I'm about to get real dark.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take a break.
Yeah. And no, that's important. I think that a lot of times, especially not just people that you don't owe an explanation, but people that you feel can't do anything for you. It's the same kind of like ease of just kind of being an asshole because you're like, okay, well, you're not doing anything for me. You can't get me to the next level. You can't get me money. You can't get me a certain way. So really, I don't really owe you the best version of myself. A lot of times that's how we move through life. We kind of treat people like I'll notice, like, I know it'll be something little, it'll be silly, silly, small things that I notice. And it's like, I think it says a lot about how you treat people in general. Like I'll go on someone's page and I'll see how they may hype up someone that can potentially do something for them because of their status or their access to other people. But then for someone that may not have that, they may not be as hype about it, or they may not want to broadcast that friendship. Like I think I see celebrities do it all the time where celebrities are so busy on Instagram, but they'll find time to respond to each other. But then there's all these people that are commenting, and obviously you can't get to everyone. But I mean, there are some that don't answer people at all in comments, but will be having exchanges and doing all these things with other celebrities who they feel are worth their time. Not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but it is a testament to just how humans kind of operate on a grand scale, where we kind of treat people based on what we think they can do for us. And oftentimes, if someone can't do enough for you, then you will become a villain based on the fact that you will treat them like they're disposable because you think they are. I've definitely been there and done that a couple times. Yeah. So I wanted to backtrack, and you were saying on the dates, you always want to find out if your demons play well together. So you ask, like, what's the worst thing about you? What, other than you saying what you already said about what's one of the worst things about you is that you get ADD. What are a couple other things that you feel like are not your best traits?
I mean, you and I talk about it all the time. I am really irritable. Like, yo, I am such an irritable human.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were that. I always knew you were irritable, but I didn't know you were so irritable until we went to Colombia on that girls' trip, because I don't think I irritate you like that. Like we get along really well and we kind of flow really well, and like we like don't really have a lot of tension between us ever. So I've never really seen you like that for that length of time. I've more so seen your irritability in moments. Where like something happens, you respond irritable and then it's done. But like a constant state of irritability. And I was like, oh my gosh, she is so easily annoyed. I have no idea.
Yes. But I say that too on a first date. I tell them I am an irritable person. Like the true definition of it. And I have no patience. Like if I ask you for something and I want something, my expectation is that you will deliver it. Yeah. But the only reason I have that expectation, and this is where I have to always like simmer down, sis, is because I do that. Like if my friends tell me that they're in need of something, I immediately go to solve it.
Yeah.
And so I have to remember, like, yo, everybody isn't like that. And you can't have that expectation on others. Like you said something that was super sweet when you were introducing me. We were speaking at Jessica's event. And you were saying that you told me you were cold. And I immediately went to go and that's my personality. I don't understand. If we're having a problem, we solve the problem. Like it irritates me.
Yeah.
When people don't have that energy with me, because I'm like, yo, that's all I'm putting out into my universe. And it's not because I'm expecting it back. I really just am a problem solver. So if you tell me you have a problem, okay, bet this is something I can fix. I can assist with this. Why would I leave you in a state that is uncomfortable unnecessarily so? Okay. Sometimes we will have to be uncomfortable. It is the period or the time frame or the season that we're in. Sometimes we will have to be uncomfortable. But if it's an unnecessary discomfort, why, if I say I care about you, would I leave you in that state? So I don't understand when I get that energy. I'll be hella confused.
That's irritable.
Irritable. Exactly.
So you get irritated more so by people's lack of assertiveness.
Yes, I can't stand an indecisive person. I just cut off a man yesterday. I said, you were too indecisive for me. I cannot, will not. This ain't it. Thank you, but no thank you. Thank you for your service, but no, we don't
Okay.
do that. I don't allow it. I cannot. Again, I want to be able to show up as my best self.
Right. Right. Is there anything else? Any other things? Any other?
Oh man. The major ones, honestly, is I have no patience and I'm irritable. But the rest of them is all good. Like I'm a dope human, a really great friend, a phenomenal like lover, and I don't mean sex. I mean like just a phenomenal. I love people. Like if I say I love you, you know I love you because I do my best to ensure that I show up for you in ways that matter to you. Not
Yeah.
your love language is words of affirmation and I keep throwing gifts your way. Or quality time is your love language. And I'm like, oh, let me, give you some acts of service. You're never gonna feel like I love you if I don't love you the way that matters to you.
Yeah. Very true. That's super important.
Yeah.
Very
But
true.
no, I definitely can be a villain, especially with my irritability. Man, man.
I would say I definitely have a bunch. I have some traits that are not great. I always want to respond in a not nice way.
Yes.
Yeah. Like if I'm annoyed or pissed off or something, my first response or like my like natural response is something really, really mean. Like my mouth is
That mouth be mouthing. Like,
I be real, yeah. And it's quick and I don't even gotta be mad. So
no.
I think that is maybe one of my greatest, I don't want to say flaw, but area of opportunity is if you step on my toe, I want to break your foot off.
Oh shit. Wait.
My punishment don't be fitting a crime. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't, like I don't fight fair, And I mean I do a lot better now, but I'm just talking about the inclination and like the natural response that I feel.
Yeah.
The therapy and the spirituality has helped me to curb it a bit, but I know how I feel inside. And for me, that's the real work is I don't even want to feel like that.
Yeah.
It's not about how you see it or how I respond to you. It's about how I feel in my body because those feelings of rage and anger and things like that make you want to respond like that. You can still feel them even if you don't respond that way.
Absolutely.
And that is the real healing when you really don't even feel like responding like that. So I feel like that less, but I still feel it.
Yeah. It's always the heart of the matter. Like
Exactly. It doesn't matter how I respond. There are people that are thinking about murdering you and hug you. Like it's not like that's not what you want to harbor in your body just for your own well-being. So it's not about how other people are not hurting people's feelings and things like that, but it's more so about how I feel in my body and wanting to have the purest of hearts and the most sound of minds and things like that. And I think, that's something that I struggle with. Is just like if something happens or if I'm annoyed or irritated, my say like you will respond and your meanness, you have to get to like a 75% to get me. For me, I only really need like 15% to get to the space that it would take someone else 75% to get to. Does that make sense? Like your rage is my like annoyed. And sometimes it can make me not be the best version of myself. So that for me is something I'm always working with. A lot of it is what I grew up seeing. I kind of grew up equating strength with bitchiness.
Okay.
Yeah, like I grew up seeing the woman in my family being really like harsh with their words, or being very like, and it's not just women in my family. I think Jamaican culture is very raw in their delivery of things, and you just say like you'll see someone like your aunt, you'll like walk in, and your aunt will look at you like, oh my God, you got so fat. And they don't mean anything by it. They don't mean like they're not trying to hurt your feelings. They don't think that you're going to go home and cry. But I grew up in that kind of an environment where it's just kind of okay to say whatever you want. And especially to people you're close to because you're being honest and you're being upfront with them. You're telling the truth because it's some way of loving them. I guess is the logic.
In Nigerian culture too.
Yeah. So that paired with just how the women in my family are, just kind of just being like very direct and very straightforward and very just mean with words, very kind and giving, and will take the shirt off their back and cook you a meal, but will cut you with the words, like don't don't get it. That was what I grew up seeing. I grew up seeing these kind women who would take people off the street and feed them and clothe them, but will cuss you all the way out and make you question your whole existence. Right? So for me, that's something that I feel like is really hardwired into me, that I have to constantly, like, I can't just leave that on cruise control. Yeah. I can't leave it on cruise control. That's one. My other one is that I get in my head too much. Yeah. Okay. I get in my head about stuff. Like, I overthink. And I don't always think overthinking can be a flaw, but in my case, I just will tell myself a story, and by the end of the conversation, it's a novel. Like, I'm gonna come up with all the reasons, and I'm gonna assume, and I'm gonna draw all the conclusions.
With your assumptions and with what happens with that, then does that make you treat the people who you've come up with the story about differently?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So whether or not it's the truth, this is the story that you have come up with in your head.
Yeah.
You're going to treat them however you have decided and determined they are based on the story you told yourself in your head.
And then the worst part is, because I don't want to be mean with my words, I will not say anything, but then I may get a little passive aggressive, because I also grew up seeing a lot of passive aggressiveness. But my passive aggressiveness is more by choice, not out of habit. I will be passive aggressive thinking that this is the better way than me eating you alive. But really, it's not, because the person can feel it. I more so experience it in my romantic relationships. My friendships, not so much, because I feel comfortable just kind of saying stuff with my friends, and my friends don't get me like that. But men, of course, tend to have a little bit more hold on our emotions. Yes. And I find in my romantic relationships, I definitely struggle with kind of dealing with things in that moment. And not shutting down. Like, I definitely will shut down in a heartbeat. Like,
man,
if you shame me or make me feel some type of way or talk to me some kind of way, because I don't want to respond in a meaner way to you, I will shut down. But then that creates a whole other host of problems.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yeah. I think for me, so I don't shut down, and that I think might be a toxic trait.
Right? Doesn't it depend on the situation and how you go about it? Because sometimes it's like, I like that. I have friends that they're quick to go back at their man and say some shit and get them together. And then that causes another set of problems in their relationship. But for me, it's I try to be very kind to my men, and I try to just kind of keep the peace as much as possible. But then it'll come out in other behaviors and other moods. And my energy is really strong. So I've had a man tell me yo, I feel like when I walked in the apartment that it was a dark cloud over this bitch. What happened? What's wrong? Because I'm one of those people where I'm going to shift the whole environment if I'm at everybody's net.
Listen, that's why too. So when I say I don't know how to keep it to myself, never that I emasculate my man. Any man who I've ever dated, they'll tell you nah, at least you don't, I'm not going to make you feel small. That's never my intention. That's never even, I don't do that. My thing is I will want to talk about it, whether or not you're ready.
And that can be a problem, especially for men.
That can be a very big problem. I'm not ready. And I'm but I am. Let's discuss. Then I will, and it won't be any yelling or raising voices, because I don't, after being married to an abuser and being in relationships with abusive men, because my ex-husband was not the first time I was in a relationship with an abusive man. I told you, I used to choose really, really bad. I had poor choosing making abilities. I don't even know if that's how you're supposed to say that, but I made really shitty choices. I just was really bad at it. Nobody had taught me how to date. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
And because I had been abused so much growing up by so many different people in my life, from being slapped in front of an auditorium full of kids and adults in school, being fought by a teacher, me fighting back, and then them trying to expel me from, my mom, love her, mean it, but she was really, really, she knew no other way to handle who I was than to like beat and to slam and to choke. Like it was a lot. So
Mhm.
because I was abused, and this is something that I was able to finally name um, in going through therapy, like the co-founder of the school, like came to the school and like beat the shit out of me, like in front of people. Like I was really physically abused growing up. Because
Mm.
I really could not understand, how do I choose partners so, not that they are bad people,
Yeah.
but whose actions towards me are sometimes so violent when I am at my core an extremely kind person. That for me was wild. I could not understand it. And
Right.
so once you got me to a certain point, I became more than just a villain to you. I became like a demon to
Yep.
where, like, now I gotta break you.
Yep. Yeah. And now I'm lashing out. Yep. I've definitely been that. I've literally been called the devil. Like, I had been in an argument with a partner, and he was like, "Yo, you're like the devil." And I was like, "No, I'm not like the devil. I am the devil."
Oh
I think that was my response. It was bad.
wild. But I
Yeah,
realized why
it's
I
a
do
wild
it.
shit.
But I realized though, when you go through that much abuse in your formative years, I thought subconsciously that that's what love looked like.
And that was okay. Like it was just a part of it.
It's just a part of it. Like
Yeah, it
this is
comes
a
with
part
it.
of it. Yeah, it comes with it. Like this is a part of it. And then I took got some therapy, and I was like, okay, well, how do I want to show up? Started like with my daughter, being able to have really uncomfortable conversations, acknowledging when I was wrong,
Yeah.
not having the balls to say, hey, man, this one I fucked up. My bad, dog. I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm having a really difficult time, and this part of your personality scares me or frustrates me or doesn't align with what I see or envision for myself. Like
Mm.
being able to have those conversations with your friends, like
Yeah.
with those that you love, with those who don't show up the way you need them to show up.
Game changer.
It is a game changer. It makes it so that the people in your life and who are surrounded by you and who are impacted by the decisions that you make and the words that you speak, it makes it so that you become safe.
Yes, absolutely. And wow, that's such a great way to put it. That's so true. It definitely creates, like, you think that it's going to harm the relationship, but it usually ends up fortifying and strengthening the relationship the more you can have these uncomfortable conversations. And something that you said that I just like, I felt like, I don't even know if you realize how much of a testament to your own healing that was, where you just said that even though your abusers did violent things, like that, you didn't call them bad people. And the
That's
fact that you were able to separate that is such a big that's so much evidence of your growth, because so many times we want to just label everyone good and bad based on what they've done to us, which is why this conversation is so important, is because, like, okay, how about all the times that you were a villain? Are you a bad person? Somebody out there is calling you an asshole, a liar, a
listen,
cheater. uh,
somebody.
Somebody out there has, had a name for you that your mama didn't assign. So it's like, why are we so quick to label everyone as good, bad, this, that? But then when we sometimes do the same things that we're mad at other people for doing to us,
Same thing.
and a lot of times it's just karma, that's how the karmic cycle works, then
Your turn.
why is it that we tend to not have so much grace and compassion when people do things to us? And especially in this day and age of cancel culture and everybody else being toxic, we have removed grace and compassion from our interactions with other human beings. And it makes us so rigid and so judgy and so harsh to each other, not remembering. It's like, like adults forget when they were children. So everything a child does annoys them. It's like, okay, victims sometimes forget when they were the villain. And it's not to excuse people mistreating you or saying you should just take whatever people want to do. I'm just saying that you can have better relationships if you can also remember the times where you were in the other shoe of the villain. And maybe you will still walk away, but I promise you your healing process and how you understand and deal with it will be very, very different from someone who's always the victim and never remembers the times when they were the villain.
When I say you gotta say that, like, I feel like you just got somebody delivered with that one. On some real shit. Like, and this is the work that we're doing. So anyone who knows I don't do church, but this form of ministry, like with what you just said, it literally is like, how can you, like, do you remember the time? Because even with my own situation that you and I have been discussing, someone I was talking to someone, they're like, you should really hate that person. And I was like, why? That person is simply traumatized, has been for years.
Mhm.
So they can't help but respond to me out of their trauma. Wish them well, don't want nothing bad to happen to them, but you are no longer allowed to be in my energetic space, place, or anything else because you are unsafe for me.
Mm. And you can understand that and still make a decision to walk away. And I think that's what people don't realize is you feel like, oh, I have to be hurt and victimized and I have to stay in this space in order for me to leave. No, you can stand in your power and still walk away. You can be like, no, they did it. I get it. I understand, but I'm going to love you from a distance.
From a distance.
From a distance, and that's okay. It's so you can do both. You can be all the things. And I had to learn that the very, very hard way. Because of all the times I've been the villain. Okay, story time. I'm gonna give you a great example of how karma works and how it comes back. And whether you believe in karma or not, the world, the earth is set up for seed time and harvest. Regardless of how it works, Mother Nature, the universe, all that is a cycle, right? And that's just how it works. You cannot avoid it. All right, story time. I'll tell you a little bit of my business. One time I was in a relationship and I was very unhappy. like all my relationships before this one. I'm just kidding. At some point I do end up unhappy though.
But not this time.
Yes. I usually like a year, I'm like, all right.
It's time.
That's where my ADD kicks in. It's a little delayed, but it kicks in after like a year.
Man,
so anyway, and I literally was coming up on that year mark. And long story short, things were weird. And it just was the relationship. Honestly, it's going to sound like an asshole thing to say, but it was really more of an experiment. I was trying to see if I could be with like oh God, I'm about to say something not nice. I was trying to see if I could be with like a nicer, more like, I don't want to say lame, but
no, but it's what it is.
The word, like in my mind, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm gonna try because I had just gotten like really like heartbroken by like a very attractive cool guy. Got out of something, and then this other person came into my orbit, and he was more like, like very attractive, but just not swaggy or didn't really know how to dress, and like just not
what we normally go for.
Of what I usually go for. Right. So anyways, it was not a genuine like initial spark. It was like something I was trying to muster up. It wasn't. Yeah, but it just wasn't there. Like it just that chemistry, that connection, that sexual connection just wasn't there. Right. So anyways, long story short, we're getting close to the end of the relationship anyways. And one night I go out with my girlfriends and an ex-boo hit me up that he's in town. Right. So he's like, oh, what are you doing? I'm in town. I want to see you, whatever. So mind you, I had plans after I was hanging out with my girls. I was supposed to go back to my current boyfriend's house to spend the night, hang out, whatever. Right. So I get a little tipsy at the restaurant with my girls and I respond back to my ex-boo like, hey, yeah, I'm out and about. What's up? Like, blah, blah, blah. hit me up when you're, I'll hit you up when I'm leaving here. He's like, okay. He's like, all right, yeah, cool. I'll see you, whatever. So I get in the car and I'm like, we're like, what am I gonna do? So my homegirls are like, yo, like, what are you gonna say? And I'm gonna figure it out. I was like, but y'all stay on standby. Okay, because I might need you to bring you up to speed to help me like cover my tracks. I go meet up with my ex. We go like get some drinks or whatever. And then we like just hang out for like the whole night, right? And my boyfriend at the time is blowing me up. Like I'm talking about calling me back to back to back to back. It's not funny. Back to back to back to the point where my ex is like, yo, you gonna get that? And he's like, yo, who is that keeps calling you? And I was like, oh, it's this dude that like we're breaking up and he's like being obsessive and he's calling me, which was not a total lie. Like we were not in a good space. And he would like break up with me and like want to get back together. And it was just like, it was just not a good thing. So anyways, it's like 6:00 in the morning at this point. Right. And I had turned off my phone. I text my homegirl. I was like, hey, say that if anything happens, if it ever comes up, just say that my phone died and I fell asleep at your house. Right. So I pull up to my boyfriend's house and act like I'm so drunk. Mind you, I'm not drunk. And I was like, hey, oh my God, my phone. He was like, I was so worried about you. I was like, yeah, I know. Like, I just was so fucked up. And I ended up passing out on this friend's couch. And I mean, like, I was like, I'm talking about, I need an Academy Award for that performance. Lord, I hope he's not listening because I don't think he knows to this day that that's what happened. But now you know. Sorry. Hope you're fine. But so then now, years later, I get it. So we end up breaking up after. I mean, he doesn't. I didn't ever confess. Like I technically got away with it because life went on, whatever. But we ended up breaking up for different reasons. Fast forward a few years later, I end up in a different relationship, and I get cheated on. But even though my initial reaction, I felt devastated, it definitely felt more like an ego blow than a heartbreak. Because I was able to understand what goes into that and the mentality and things like that. And it helped me to understand how much it has zero to do with me and much more to do with that person. Me cheating on my boyfriend all those years ago had very little to do with him. It's just what I wanted to do in the moment. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get him, or oh, I don't care about him, or oh, I'm going to hurt his feelings. It was more so selfish in the sense of I just want to do me right now. And I have an opportunity to do that and feel a way that he's not making me feel at the moment. It has very little to do for my situation. I can't speak on every person that's cheated, but for me, it reminded me of how little cheating, or anything bad that people do has very little to do with the person they're doing it to and everything to do with them.
Yeah, how they're feeling, what's happening with them, what the experience is that they want to create. But that is why I say, you want to stop being a villain, be willing to have courageous conversation.
Yes, it's
be willing to say, hey, especially so I have a couple of homeboys who they married women whose sex drive is like a 2 and their sex drive is like a 10. I could have told you from jump that wasn't going to work out. Not if she requires monogamy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's just not how that works.
It's not going to work out. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Let's get to the point to where we're telling the truth to ourselves and others.
Yes.
So, okay. Because as the men, they didn't have the confidence to have a courageous conversation and say, hey, babe, I love you. Every part of me loves you. And also, I need, or I require, or I like sex on a consistent basis, this amount of times per week.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Do you immediately think of what I just said and you are exhausted already just thinking about it? Are you frustrated?
Yeah.
Like, are you frustrated just thinking about the fact that you that I am going to want sex from you 4 times a week? What is that? What feeling comes up for you? And then based on that response, decide, how do we want to orchestrate our relationship so that A, I'm not lying to you. I'm not putting you in a position to where you are embarrassed or I shame you. What does that look like to have a conversation where you are being honest? And I know I got folks who are like, oh, that's easier said than done, or you just don't know my partner, you just don't know my lady. No, you just don't know how to be honest. You need to call a spade a spade. You are a
Mhm.
liar, and it makes you feel better to lie than to honestly say, these are my needs. This is what I need. And both of them are now divorced. Both of them. And both of their wives felt unsafe in the marriage because they knew that they were stepping out. Because
Yep.
women, most times we know
Yeah, your intuition. Yeah.
it's very few times that we just, are just like, now, oh my God. And that does happen. Like, I am not about to say, oh, it never happens. That's the lie. There are times where you just shocked, like, oh, so you, oh,
Just like when you were talking about those sheep in wolves clothing, those relationships tend to be the hardest. Those heartbreaks and hurts, and those people that abuse you when they came in like a sheep and they came in like a good person tend to be the deepest and the hardest blows, because you let your guard down, you let them in, you think that they're this kind of person, and then they end up being something completely different. That those kind of betrayals are just heart wrenching.
yeah.
And for with my situation where I got cheated on, that was a big part of it, is that I thought we were really good friends.
Mm,
It wasn't about the romantic aspect of our relationship. It's like, I just didn't think you would do that to me as your friend.
that's the
Regardless of relationship, whatever. In my situation, when I did cheat on that young man, um,
you weren't.
one where it was not as serious as my relationship was when I got cheated on, and we never established a friendship.
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't know if men understand that when you're cheating on women, especially that you've been with for years or have your children and things like that, it's about the fact that, wow, I thought that you would do me better than that because of our friendship. And I don't see you doing your homeboys. I don't see you betraying your homeboys and betraying other people in your life. Why do you feel like I'm worth the betrayal? Because I don't know if people really just water cheating down to exactly what it is, which is just a betrayal. It's the deception that bothers me, not the act.
Yeah,
And,
not act.
and after that relationship that I had, the last time that I cheated on someone was that young man in that situation, I felt so bad after that I vowed to never cheat on anyone again,
Oh wow.
because of how I just was like looking in his eyes and realizing that he believed me. And I knew I was just lying straight to his face. And I was like, as much as I can enjoy the power trip that this gives my ego, my heart and who I am at my core does not want to be a deceptive, lying bitch. Like, that's not cool. That's not okay. I wouldn't want anybody to do it to me. It started boiling down to, it's just not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't about like you, that person, or me, or it was just like, how often am I going to choose to do the right thing, whether it hurts, whether it doesn't work in my favor all the time initially, because it always works in your favor down the road, but doing the right thing doesn't always feel like the right thing. So how often do you choose doing the right thing even when it doesn't feel like it is at that moment? It doesn't feel good to choose the right thing because that's going to make me uncomfortable. I have to have that ugly conversation, that uncomfortable conversation that I don't want to have.
Yeah.
What you're saying about having those conversations is really how you can remove some of those feelings, and you can kind of work through being a villain or being a victim so that you guys can get to a space of understanding and common ground. Because most situations and most disagreements are rooted in understanding, or rooted in misunderstanding.
Yeah. They're rooted in misunderstandings. Absolutely. And it really does boil down to, who do I want to be? It's not about
Mm.
anybody else.
Ooh, that part. That part right there. Who do I
Who
want
do
to
I
be?
want to be?
Yes,
Who do I want to be?
yes, yes.
Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What kind of like with brand, because I used to own a branding and marketing firm. And I would tell people all the time, You need to figure out, what do you want people to say about you when you are no longer in the room?
Mm, ooh, wee. Now that's a question.
What do
Not
you
when you're dead, because that's like, you know,
Yeah, that's
who
too
do you
far
want
away.
people to say you are when you're no longer in the room? Alicia, that is a gem, honey. Take notes, sis. Wow, what a powerful question.
Who do you want? What do you want that to be? When people talk
Mm,
about you and when your energy, because like you said, see, so you and I are, we shift rooms when we walk into them because we understand the power that we hold.
yeah.
Um, there's a great responsibility that comes with that.
Yes. Yes.
Hitler had that type of responsibility. Martin Luther King had that type of responsibility.
And two different.
Gandhi, yes, two totally different levels and ways in which they operated in the world, but light beings have a responsibility, and you get to choose whether or not you're going to how you gonna exercise that light being, that power.
Mm,
How will you utilize it? What does that look like? How will you make people feel? Because when you know that you are a powerful being, you have to decide, how, number one, how do I want to feel? And then how will I make other people feel?
yeah. Yep.
Because you understand the power that you hold. Like, I know my words can crush people's souls. I'm very good. I'm a wordsmith if I ever met one. I know how to crush people's entire spirits with my words. That is also why I'm very careful when
Yeah.
I am irritated or when I am losing patience, because I know how to put words together to cut people.
Yep.
So now I get quiet and start having conversations with myself, like, we don't do that anymore.
Because we're not gonna come back from this.
Mm-mm.
I always used to ask. I mean, now I don't do this at all, but when I was in the early stages of trying to control my mouth and my hands, um, I used to I used to ask myself, am I gonna see this? Do I want to still have a relationship with this person after this conversation, or am I okay with never talking to them again? And I would approach it based on that.
Because that's a very real thing.
Yeah, yeah. I would
Very
approach
real
it based on
thing.
that. And if I was okay with never talking to you again, then it probably wasn't going to be a good conversation. Now I more so have conversations like, how will I feel after this? And what what is that person going to leave with?
Yes.
Like, how are they going to feel? How can I communicate how I'm feeling without destroying, without hurting, without
Oh,
maiming you? Like, but how can I get my point across? Because I mean, how much power do you have to have, or how much control of your power do you have to know how to use it precisely? Like, that for me is the mastery. Is like when you look at, like Marvel movies or any kind of movie like that. It's like there's so much power, but if I'm only trying to hit one target, I have to learn how to hone that power and use it to the best of its ability, or I will destroy everything around me. So
ever.
it's like you have to, especially people that are influencers and people that have platforms. I do think you do hold a responsibility to manage it and control it in a different way. You just have a different responsibility. You can't just say, oh, I'm not, I hear like, rappers or people be like, oh, I'm not their parents. It's their parents' job to teach them this, or I don't have any social responsibility anymore. Because celebrities used to have social responsibility where they could not do certain things because of who they were.
Mhm.
Now we're living a different age. And do I believe, yes, your parents should be your first influence? Oh, that would be so nice if that were the case. But we all know that we were very influenced by our friends at school and by the people on television. It's just how the world works. It's just how we're wired. So for me, when people have so much influence and so much power over others to shift and move them, I, it's sad when they choose not to do it in a way that can empower people and help people move through the world as better people. It's very difficult to see that, because I see it all the time where I'm just like, you are like a force and you are just choosing to destroy everything.
Force. A force. You just said something right there. And people don't understand. To whom much is given, much is required.
That part.
Like, there's a responsibility that comes with having great amounts of power. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you didn't have to have great amounts of power to having any level of power.
Yeah.
Being a parent, there is a
We all
responsibility.
have it. We all have some kind of
Everybody
power.
has it.
Yep.
Every single person has some level of power. And with that power comes a responsibility.
Yep.
Literally, like, so I've been talking to my daughter, and as human, biological females or biological, whatever it is, what
We don't
happened?
know more. We don't even know.
Yeah, I'm learning and I'm willing to learn.
People with vaginas at birth. Where we can go with that.
Yes.
Vagina
Humans,
holders.
yes, humans with vaginas
From birth. You can now get a
from
vagina.
birth. Yes. So humans who were born with vaginas, right?
There you go.
They have a level of responsibility because once you start menstruating, you now become a portal that ushers in souls. You give souls body.
Ooh, that. Ooh, wow, wow,
You
wow.
have a responsibility. It is not just, oh, well, he came in me. Oh, but sis, again, and this is not talking bad about anybody, but this is putting the power back in your hands.
Yeah,
You have a
knowing that you have it. Wow, wow, Alicia, that's crazy. That is
you have a level of responsibility because you
whoa.
are the
I just,
holder of said vagina.
I just got chills, whole chills. Wow, I that just like that click that like gave me like a light bulb went off.
You
Wow.
whether you like it or not, agree with it or not, whether you want the vagina or not want the vagina, none of that
Don't
matters.
deny the power, or you can deny the power, but at what cost?
At what cost? At what cost? You have a level of
Mm,
responsibility that comes with it. And I've been having this conversation with my daughter a lot because I'm not into telling people sex isn't good. Don't do it.
yeah.
Lies. Lies. If you do it right, it's one of the best things
Mm.
ever. However, you're 12 and you don't yet know how to manage the level of responsibility that comes with being born with a vagina and a biological portal that gives souls bodies.
Oh, wow.
So there are some decisions and
That's
some
it.
things that you aren't going to want to make right now because what it requires from you. The level of responsibility is too great. The consequences are too great. And you might not be able to manage what the responsibilities are and what the consequences are from some of the choices that you make with your vagina.
Ooh.
So
Girl.
substitute vagina with power, access, opportunity, decision. Understand to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yep.
And you're being a villain or not a villain, you're being a safe place or an unsafe place is it goes back to the decisions that you make about how do you want to feel and then how do you want others to feel. When you
Yeah.
walk out of the room, when they're done interacting with you, if we all can get to a space and place in life to where this is how we make decisions and this is how we treat people, not treat people how you want to be treated. Fuck that. I'm gonna forget that, especially if I'm pissed.
Yep.
Nobody thinking about how I want to be treated.
Yeah.
What?
There's,
No.
oh,
But how do I want to feel? I'm gonna always remember me. How do I want to feel once the interaction is over? How do I want? Then I can think about you. After I've thought about me first. How do I want to feel? Then I can think about you. How do I want you to feel after this interaction? Because words can literally cause people to kill themselves, to take themselves clean the fuck out.
easily, easily. I always think about that when I hear. I mean, there's been a definite uptick in young people committing suicide,
Themselves out.
which is like, it makes me very, very sad. So let me not get emotional, but there's definitely been an uptick. And I always wonder, like, what does somebody say? It's not really sometimes what people do to you. It's a lot of times the things that people say to you that stick with you. It's that thing that you said at 7 that got you feeling like you're not worthy. And you're like, God, dang, he just said something. Nobody even smacked me around. I didn't grow up in in as much of a physically abusive home, but I definitely grew up in spaces that were verbally and emotionally and mentally abusive. And you can get the same result and have the same issues as if someone was punching you in the mouth every day. Like that's why I love that now there's more conversations around how emotional and financial and mental abuse are should be held in a very similar, or if not the same regards and level as physical abuse, especially in domestic relationships, because a lot of times women are emotionally abused and people feel like, oh, if I can't see it, it's not there.
It's not that bad. That is not true.
It's not true. You can have, there are people that are literally out murdering other people, serial killers, and all kind of things, and monsters are coming out of what people said to them. Said to them. Somebody said something. Somebody constantly spoke things into their life. Somebody constantly fed their spirit with negative words. Because when you talk about spelling and things like that, it's like you are literally using your words. Your words have power. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. It's like you can't just feel like, oh, I'm just going to say things. I'm going to tell my kid they're nothing. I'm going to tell my kid they're losers.
Ugly.
I'm going to tell them they're ugly. I'm going to tell them they're fat and not think that's going to come out of that.
And then too, I always say why. Like I have cousins who and it pisses me off. Like I can't stand when people are like, oh, he weak because he light skinned. Like this guy was dating, he was texting me about the Super Bowl. And I was like, oh, I don't watch sports. I give two shits about sports. No disrespect to those who are gung-ho sports folks. Live your best life. For me, it's just not my thing. So I was texting him. I was like, oh, is your team winning? How's it going? Whatever. And he's like, oh, he light skinned. So he playing like a pussy.
Oh.
First of all, pussy is stronger than most things I know, because not only can it take a serious beating, but it can also get itself wet. It can bleed without killing its host, and it can push a baby.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Pussies are very strong. I'm going to need you to, first of all, get it together, number one. And number two, that whole light skin, dark skin, because I have cousins and family members who are very, very dark. And my sister's also very dark skinned. And so when we were growing up, there was this one lady in our church where she gave my sister such a, like, we went through some shit growing up. But my sister had such a low self-esteem because she was like, well, how come you look like this and your sister look like that? First of all, fuck you.
Lord.
Like, her dark skin does not make her ugly. It just doesn't.
We have to have a whole conversation on colorism. Probably next season. Yeah.
We do.
I definitely want to have a conversation about it.
But my cousins, because some of them had darker skinned children, we'd be at a family reunion and they'd be like, bring your old black, ugly ass self over here. Wait a minute. This is a child. Who are you talking to?
It's not okay. Ever.
Like,
ever.
The words that you're speaking to them matter.
Yeah.
Stop calling them Blackie and ugly. I remember when Ocho Cinco and I, when we were cool, not that we're not cool now, but when we were, closer, we were having a conversation. I was working with him for some project that we were doing. And we were just talking about some of his life situations. And he was just saying like how he had ended up in certain situations. And he was just like, I grew up with my grandmother calling me, you black, ugly motherfucker, or you black nigga. And he was just like, and he knew his grandmother loved him. But if the person who you love the most is constantly and incessantly assassinating how you view and see yourself in the mirror, it becomes very, very dangerous and damaging to how now this human operates in the world.
Ooh, Yep, because just like you ended up doing, you ended up associating like, oh, that just must be a part of love. That's just love looks like. That's what people love you. Yeah, they do stuff like that. And yeah, they call you names, but they love you. It's out of love. And then you start to look for that in other people. Or even if you're not looking for it, it's just what you end up attracting and what ends up showing up at the front door. And you're like, oh yeah, I'll take this because this is what love looks like. It feels familiar. It feels safe. It feels like home, unfortunately, so that's just, you said a lot of great things. That's really powerful because it's one of those things where you don't even realize it
Don't worry.
Because it becomes a part of your programming and your hardwiring, and you just think that that is just how it is, and there isn't a different way to be. And that's why a lot of times in relationships, we'll end up, so we get abused as kids, or our parents say wild shit, or they do mean things to us. And then we grow up and we swear we're not going to be anything like that.
And do the same thing.
And we try to avoid being like that as much as you can. You run, 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 run. And then one day you end up sounding just like your mom, whether it's to your children, whether it's to your husband, whether it's to your wife, whether it's however you want to, whoever it is. And you then become the villain. And that's why you become a villainous victim, because you are that way because of what someone did to you. But now you're playing it out and doing that same thing to somebody else.
Yep.
And a lot of times what you're getting from people is what you're giving. After a while, this is what it is. It's just what it is. You're going to end up, because then you put on these, they're not rose. I don't know what you would call the color glasses that you put on. Maybe foggy glasses, black glasses. I don't know. You put on black glasses, dark shades, the big ones, the big joints, the big ones that cover half your face. You put those on and you start to look at the world like that. You think that that's how everybody is. Mm-hmm. And we all have to kind of rewire our brain. I remember when I got into the relationship that I'm in now, my partnership, and he would do things that were amazing, but would make me uncomfortable because I didn't know that it existed or even believe that it existed. And I was told in a previous relationship that what I require and what I want from a man is unrealistic.
Yo, straight up, listen.
For real.
And this is just a side note to this conversation. As women, sis, get clear on how you want to be treated.
Yep.
Super clear on how you want to be treated. And only accept that. Not only is it possible, there are multiple people who will accept.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like that for some reason. It's why so many women stay in bad relationships, because you think there's nothing else out there. Men don't think like that. Men always know as a bitch bitches are like buses. Miss one, next 15, one coming. What's a great Gucci man. So for me, it's like you start to believe these things. It's not just your parents that can brainwash you. Your lovers can brainwash you. Your friends can brainwash you. TV is brainwashing you every day. Social media is brainwashing you every day. Don't think that only children and young people and teenagers are susceptible to manipulation and mind control. When you open up your body and your mind and your home and all the things to a man or to a lover, you give them permission to either manipulate you and hurt you and mess with your head, or obviously permission to love you and treat you like the amazing queen and king that you are, right? And I definitely was manipulated. I grew up with a very immense love with a family member, and I felt like I really understood, and I was blessed to understand what love for me should look like from a man. And I still went out and ended up with men that did not meet to that level, because I felt like, oh, maybe that was just a one-off. I kept being told that by friends, by other family members. I was just like, oh, you know what? Like, that was just because he was my relative. I can't get that romantically. It's not going to translate that way. And I even ended up in a relationship where I would tell the person about that person and how much I felt loved by them and how great our love was. And they would tell me that that was unrealistic, and that that's not going to happen, and that I should just realize that I'm living in la la land and it's a fairy tale. So when I got into this relationship, I kind of came in with that expectation that, you know, it's not going to ever be like this great thing that I experienced. I'm just going to take what I can get at this point.
Yeah.
You start to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, damn, if he's 6 out of 10, I don't know. I might have to ride this out, because it's only going to get worse from here. That's how we think. He would really say that to me. It's only downhill from here, is what he would say to me.
Listen, and anytime somebody tells me that, you need to know. I've seen what I need to see. You need to know. Let me pack up my bags, get my
Yeah,
chocolates. I don't even like
he'd be like,
chocolate.
I don't know where you're going. It's just downhill from here. And I'd be like, damn, if I go back out there, then because women would literally be like, well, why would I leave this man who cheats on me to go get another man who cheats on me? Why do you think every man is gonna cheat on you, sis? Like, but I've been there and I understand it. So I'm saying that to say that you have to start to realize that the things that you want and the things that you desire are out there. It's just sometimes one, you may not be ready to handle it or know how to deal with it. And two, you may be at a space that your frequency and where you're vibrating does not attract that. So a
Doesn't
lot of
attract
times
or align.
or align with that. It's about the alignment. So it's not about you're not worthy of it, you don't deserve it. Oh no, you do deserve it and you're absolutely worthy of it, but are you aligned in it? Are
Mm.
you vibrating on that frequency? Or do men that's up here even know you exist? Because you down here in the pool with the tadpoles. You know what I'm saying? Like, where are you vibing at?
Yes.
And how are you showing up in the world so that other men it's not about how they're making you feel, but how are you making them feel? Are you clear? I heard my cousin say the other day that he was on, he always tells me that I look like a bill.
Ah,
He was
somebody said that on a date, and I got so excited. I was like, "Oh my god, thank you so
bill. And
much!"
he was and he was talking about this other girl. He was like, she looks like a bill. And I was like, break that down because we were talking to other people. And he was like, well, a man can look at you and know if he can play with you or not, based on how you carry yourself, based on how you pull up, based on how you walk, based on how you talk. They know whether, okay, I can take her for a ride and I could just kind of sleep with her and kind of string her along, or for this girl, I got to show up and come correct. They know the difference.
They know.
They know the difference. They know if they can play with you or not. They
But
know.
you don't always know. But you don't
don't.
always know. And what
They don't have
happens
that
is,
energy exactly because
but
they
if,
know.
but
Does it
if
all
you
the time.
don't know, they're gonna treat you how they treat you.
Mm-hmm.
That is
If
why,
you look like a bill, and if you look like a bill, you got to come correct. And they sometimes that's why they will just leave you alone.
because
And
you require too much.
they think, and then you will think that you're an issue or you're not enough, and then you start to think that you're the problem. But no, you're trying to sell a diamond to a person that only understands cubic zirconia, who only understands rocks. He don't know how to identify that you are a diamond. He doesn't know what that looks like. He doesn't know the value of that. He only understands rocks and fake shit. He don't know the difference. Oh, oh no, but he knows that. Oh, but she's sparkling a little different. This bitch, she
The
is
sparkle is different.
yeah. The light is hitting her shit different. She's sparkling on the walls. It's no. What do they say in rap music? They be like, it's no fog. It's no clouds in my stones.
No clouds in my sky, something. Listen.
Up there. She icy. And they will turn away from that because your light sometimes may be too bright for them. And you just have to understand. I know this turns to a whole other conversation, but I just felt compelled to say that don't always feel like when somebody is not into you or gravitates towards you. Yes, it can be because they're vibing at a higher level and you're vibing at a lower level and you guys just don't align. But it could also be the opposite, that you're the one vibing a little high and you're the one that is in another space that they don't feel comfortable in. It's not always you're just so messed up and there's something wrong with you as to why relationships don't work out. That's not a fact.
Absolutely. And be okay with that. Like,
Yeah.
so I normally screen, and we gotta go because this conversation it's so good though.
We gotta go. Go.
But the last thing from me, at least, story time. When it comes to how you show up, what it looks like, every single time I step out of my house, I step out as if I know I'm a woman you're supposed to respect. I normally screen before I allow a guy to take me on a date. Like, I'll ask, hey, where are we going? Not because I don't trust him, but because I won't take myself certain places. So I absolutely won't allow you to take me certain places. But I got really, really busy and I had told this guy, yeah, we could meet up, we could hang out, whatever. And so I didn't get a chance to find out where we were going. So I pull up to the place and it was an immediate no for me. But I'm like, no, we're working on, being open. So I'll go inside, sit, we're talking, we're having the conversation. And he took me, out to my car, finishing things off. And he knew, like I knew, that this would be the first and last time you get to interact with my energy.
Hello.
Because the place you took me for who I am, oh, I don't allow this.
I don't take myself there. I don't go there with my girlfriends.
I won't take my 12-year-old there. So why would I allow you to take my big grown self to a place that I don't take myself? No. And
Yeah,
he knew, he knew it so much.
myself.
He knew. And it was a silent, I wish you good luck in life. Peace. How you treat you is how they will treat you. I got so excited when that man told me I look like a bill. Oh, yes. Because bills you have to take care of, or else you won't have
Big bill.
bills you have to take care of, or else you won't have access to what you get from paying it.
Don't get the light shut off now.
Don't pay your cell phone bill. You can't make no more calls.
Hello. People will pay for access to everything except for women. I don't get it.
Listen, there was a meme on Instagram. Private hospitals, private schools, private jets, all expensive. But private parts, you expect.
I love that.
How? Anything that got private in front of it you got to do something to gain access.
Hello. For real. Oh, I love that. Okay. No, I love that. No. But honestly, guys, this I hope this was helpful for you guys. And I hope that, you realize how important it is for you to take accountability for your actions, not so that you can beat yourself up and feel like shit and always be down on yourself, but so you can feel better about yourself and move on and move through it and say, hey, I messed up and I didn't do the right thing and I said the wrong thing and I screwed you over. I messed up, but I apologize and I hope that we can move through this. And another note, I meant to say this earlier. When you were talking about how people just don't want to face it and they don't want to just say it because of how they're going to look. Another thing is you always want to make sure that you're not being a coward dressed like a bully. And a lot of times we're being cowards by not facing ourselves, because then we have to face those people that we hurt. And you tend to end up acting out and lashing out in aggression to cover up the fact that you're actually terrified. You're terrified of losing the person. You're terrified of losing your lifestyle. You're terrified of loss, and you're terrified of you looking bad. So you will dress it up as if you're angry or you just don't care, because that's what it is now. Oh, I don't care about anything. I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about anybody or how they feel. And I'm just so cold or whatever, when really you're scared. So don't let fear cripple you and remove you out of spaces that you belong, because you do care and you are compassionate and you do want to do the right thing, but you're letting fear make you show up as an asshole.
Yep. Girl, you better say that good word on this good Sunday.
Don't do that. I've done that a lot of times, where I would rather just walk away, or I'd rather just be a bitch about it because I don't want to face it. And it ends up tarnishing really strong, really, really good relationships that didn't have to end like that or end at all. If you would have just had a better conversation with that person, or had a conversation at all, because my thing is, I'm gonna just fade to black and just leave you just where you at. Right? Because I don't want to deal. I would just rather not deal, not come up with all the reasons why I don't want to deal with it, when really a good conversation could have had us even stronger and fortified our friendship, our relationship, our business relationship, whatever it is. So like Alechia says, do not be afraid to have conversations. It's how you move through villain to victim to a powerful, badass person. A person who shows up in the world like they really have good intentions. And the last thing I'm going to say is, you always want to make sure you leave things better than you found them.
Man,
if you can do that, is how I am wanting to show up in the world. That's my kind of mantra, is how I want to show up in the world. I always want to leave people, places, things better than I found them. When I leave it, I want to look back on it like, ooh, it was just matte black before, but now it's sparkly, now it's shining. Like, I always want to feel like I left it better than I found it. And I think if you want to take that and apply that, it definitely helps me move differently in the world, because I know that, okay, if I say this to you, am I leaving you better or worse than I found you?
Girl, you better say that. That drops the motherfucking mic. Am I leaving you better or worse than I found you? I need y'all, listen,
Mm.
stay the fuck connected.
Stay the fuck there.
Follow, stay the fuck connected. Follow us on Triggered AFPC.
Yes.
Stay connected with Dani at Dani Foster Coaching. Stay connected with me at Alicia Reese. We have so many exciting things that are still on the horizon. We
Yeah.
have been giving ourselves grace as things have taken us longer than we imagined. But listen, I promise you, baby, stay connected, stay tapped in, tuned in, because we got some really dope stuff that's coming.
Yes, yes. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I hope it helped you as much as it helped me, kind of taking that what do you call it when you stroll down memory lane and just think about how things come full circle. These conversations are so helpful to us both. So we really hope that us sharing and us being vulnerable, is helping you. And we want you guys to, DM us and message us, and let's have these conversations off air, and continue this dialogue so that we can continue healing.
Absolutely. Until next time, we will see y'all later on Triggered AF.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Triggered AF. Remember, don't be consumed by your triggers. Confront it and then work to release it. Whether you leave us more triggered than you came, or you're feeling like you've been open to a new perspective, our hope is that you've grown. Make sure to share this episode with a friend who's trigger happy and tag us while you're listening. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next week, pull it together, girl.